1. We're checking out this fascinating 1969 Chevrolet C20 that's popped up on Craigslist for $14,000. And let me tell you, this one's got quite a story to tell. This California-born long bed pickup is rocking its original 350 V8 engine, and from what the seller tells us, it's running smooth as butter. What's really cool is that this truck has stayed in the same family with just 2 owners, so its history is crystal clear. That's something you rarely find these days. Now let's keep it real here. This isn't a show truck. The paint has seen better days, with one side showing significant wear, and there's a small dent in the grille. The seat's got a tear hidden under a cover. But here's the thing, it's all honest wear, wearing its original patina like a badge of honor. Being a California truck, it's escaped the rust monster that usually plagues these classics. What really catches my attention is all the recent mechanical work. We're talking a professionally installed and tuned carburetor, new distributor components, fresh wire harness, spark plugs, gas tank, tires, battery, the list goes on. They've even done a fluid flush and full lube job. This tells me someone really cared about keeping this truck mechanically sound. The odometer shows 2,818 miles after rolling over once, and while that might sound scary to some, remember, these C20s were built like tanks. With regular oil changes and proper maintenance, which this truck has received, these engines can run forever. 2. We're looking at a 1980 Chevy Silverado that's caught my eye, listed for $6,000. Let's be completely honest here. This is definitely what you'd call a project truck, and the seller's upfront about that fact. Under the hood, you're getting the legendary 350 small block Chevy engine, which is always a solid foundation. The seller's made some noteworthy improvements, including a professionally rebuilt carburetor from Carburetor Unlimited, a new dash, which is actually a big deal because these old Chevy dashes often crack, and a new front drive shaft. Now I've got to keep it real with you. The seller's description is pretty sparse, which always makes me a bit cautious. They're not telling us about the body condition, interior state, mileage, or any rust issues. When someone describes something as a running project, that usually means there's quite a bit of work ahead. At $6,000, you're buying potential here. These C10-era Chevys are becoming increasingly popular for restoration projects, and parts availability is excellent. But remember, you're not buying a finished truck. You're buying the starting point of your own project story. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a classic Chevy project that at least runs, this might be worth checking out. Just make sure to give it a thorough inspection in person and ask plenty of questions about what other work it needs. These old Chevys are great trucks, but you'll want to know exactly what you're getting into. 3. We're checking out something really special, a 1971 Chevrolet El Camino SS that's listed for $14,900. And let me tell you, this one's got my attention. First off, let's talk about what we're looking at here. This is one of those fantastic business in the front, party in the back vehicles that made the El Camino such an icon. It's powered by the classic 350 V8, paired with an automatic transmission, which is a super reliable combination that's easy to maintain and find parts for. What really catches my eye here is that this is a California car with black plates, which typically means less rust concerns, a huge plus for any classic car buyer. The seller mentions it's rust-free and very solid, which is exactly what you want to hear when looking at a car from this era. The performance upgrades are tasteful. It's got headers, dual exhaust, and that awesome cowl induction hood. Those torque thrust wheels are a perfect period-correct touch that really sets off the look. The power steering and power disc brakes are great features that make this classic much more enjoyable to drive in today's traffic. At 50,000 miles shown, while we can't guarantee that's original, the overall package seems well preserved. The fact that it's got current registration and a clean title is another big plus. No paperwork headaches to deal with. 4. We're looking at a 1985 Ford Bronco that's listed for $6,000, and I've got to be straight with you. The seller's description is incredibly brief, which always makes me a bit cautious. What we do know is that this is a manual transmission Bronco with the inline-6 engine, likely the 4.9L/300 CI. which is actually a pretty interesting combo. These i6 engines are legendary for their reliability. They're basically the Toyota 22R of the Ford world, known to run forever with basic maintenance. The manual transmission pairing is less common and definitely adds some cool factor for enthusiasts. The odometer shows 82,000 miles but has rolled over, so we're looking at 182,000 plus actual miles. The seller states it's in good condition and comes with 4x4 capability, but that's about all we get from the description. Let's be real here. At $6,000, you're buying into the rising classic SUV market, but with such a sparse description, you'd absolutely need to inspect this one thoroughly in person. Check for the usual Bronco trouble spots like rust in the wheel wells, tailgate, and floor pans. Also, make sure that 4x4 system is working properly. These old transfer cases can be expensive to fix. These 80s Broncos are gaining popularity as classic 4x4s. And while this one's price isn't unreasonable for a solid example, you'll want to ask a lot more questions and see detailed photos before making the trip. The manual transmission and straight-six combo is definitely interesting. But remember, the less information provided, the more homework you need to do. 5. We're diving into something really special. A 1977 GMC Sierra Classic C25 that's listed for $14,500. And let me tell you, this is one seriously well-restored truck. What we're looking at here is basically a frame-up restoration of a Camper Special Sierra, and the list of new parts is honestly impressive. The heart of this beast is a freshly rebuilt 454 cubic inch engine with 0 miles on it, backed by a rebuilt TH400 transmission. That's a bulletproof powertrain combo right there. Let's talk about the serious work that's gone into this truck. The seller has literally replaced or rebuilt everything. New wiring harness from American Auto Wire, which is a big deal for these old trucks. Complete brake system overhaul, fresh dual exhaust, new radiator, and a rebuilt suspension with new ball joints and shocks. The Positraction rear end is new, which means this heavy-duty truck can actually put its power down effectively. The cosmetics haven't been ignored either. We're talking a proper base, clear paint job, new bumpers, custom billet grille, fresh upholstery, carpet, and headliner. Even the little details like new cab seals, door weather stripping, and a new windshield have been addressed. The AC system has been rebuilt too, which is a huge plus for a classic truck. At $14,500, considering the extensive list of new parts and improvements, plus the fact that it's a desirable camper special with the big 454, this actually seems like a solid value. These C25s are getting harder to find, especially in this condition, and the market for classic trucks continues to rise. 6. We're checking out a pretty interesting piece of American truck history, a 1967 Dodge D100 Survivor that's listed for $8,500. And I've got to say, these old Dodge trucks are becoming increasingly rare finds. Let's talk about what we're looking at here. This D100 is powered by the trusty 318 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, a combination that's known for its reliability and simplicity. The seller mentions it's got original miles at 61,000, which, if true, is pretty remarkable for a truck of this age. Now, they've done some key mechanical updates that are worth noting. There's a new carburetor, new gas tank, and new dual exhaust system. They've also added new wheels and tires, which can make a huge difference in how these old trucks drive. The power steering is a nice feature to have, as these trucks can be pretty heavy to maneuver without it. One interesting detail is that it comes with AC components in a box, which means you'll need to factor in installation costs if you want working air conditioning. That could be either a fun project or an additional expense, depending on how you look at it. At $8,500, considering the current market for classic trucks, this could be a decent deal if everything checks out. These 67 D100s have a unique style that stands out from the more common Ford and Chevy trucks of the era, and they're getting harder to find, especially in survivor condition. 7. We're looking at something really special, a 1947 Ford 1/2-ton pickup that's listed for $15,000. And let me tell you, these early post-war Fords are getting harder to find, especially with this much work done. Let's dive into what makes this truck interesting. First off, it's got its original title, which is pretty remarkable for a 75-year-old vehicle. The seller has done some significant modernization work, starting with converting the electrical system to 12 volts. That's a smart upgrade that makes the truck much more reliable and serviceable in today's world. The mechanical refresh is impressive. We're talking about a new carburetor, starter, generator, fuel pump, and a rebuilt radiator with new hoses. The underside hasn't been ignored either. New shocks, tie rods, drums, brakes, and master cylinder. That's basically a complete brake and suspension overhaul. The cosmetic work is equally thorough. New hubcaps with beauty rings, side steps, jail bars, and bumper. The interior's gotten some love too, with a rebuilt speedometer cluster and new upholstered seat. All 4 windows and window channels are new, which is a big deal because old Ford truck windows can be a real headache. Now, let's be realistic here. At $15,000, you're buying a piece of automotive history that's been thoughtfully updated while maintaining its classic character. The fact that it still has its original inline-6 engine, presumably the flathead, paired with a manual transmission, makes it a true representation of post-war American trucks. 8. We're checking out a 1984 Ford Bronco 2 XLT that's listed for $5,900. And I've got to say, finding a rust-free survivor from this era is getting pretty rare. This little Bronco 2 is powered by the V6 engine, likely the 2.8L, with an automatic transmission, and shows 105,000 miles on the clock. What's particularly interesting here is that it's described as rust-free, which is a big deal for these early Bronco 2s. They were notorious for rusting out, especially in the wheel wells and rocker panels. The seller's being pretty straightforward about the condition. The paint still has some shine but shows its age, totally expected for a 39-year-old vehicle. And they've mentioned new tires and a fresh battery, which are always good to have. The interior is described as very clean, which is impressive for a vehicle of this vintage. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The fan isn't working, which means the AC status is unknown. This could be as simple as a fan switch or as complex as a complete AC system repair, so you'll want to factor that into your budget if you need air conditioning. At $5,900, considering the current market for classic SUVs and the fact that this is a rust-free example with relatively low miles, it's not unreasonable. These Bronco 2s are starting to gain some collector interest, especially clean, original examples like this one appears to be. 9. We're looking at a 1977 Chevy Cheyenne that's listed for $5,000. And I've got to keep it real with you. This one's definitely a project truck, but it's got some interesting potential. Let's start with the good stuff. It's got a numbers-matching 350 V8 that was rebuilt in 2016 at 110,269 miles. And there's documentation to prove it. That's a huge plus because you know the heart of this truck is solid. The seller mentions it runs and drives great, with good brakes and transmission, all fundamental things you want in a project vehicle. Now, let's be honest about what needs work, because there's quite a list. It needs new tires, the blinkers aren't working, the hood needs attention, and the interior needs some serious TLC. The truck's been painted matte black for a project, which usually means the original paint was probably not in great shape. There are some rust spots to contend with, and while it has AC capability, the compressor's been removed. The odometer's broken, so actual mileage since the engine rebuild is unknown, though the seller mentions it's been used sparingly. Being owned by filmmakers who used it for odd jobs gives it an interesting backstory, at least. At $5,000 firm, you're buying a running and driving classic truck that needs some love. These 70s Cheyennes are becoming increasingly popular, and having a documented engine rebuild is a significant advantage. However, you'll need to budget for those needed repairs and cosmetic work. 10. We're looking at a 1968 Ford Ranchero listed for $14,000, and I need to be upfront about something important. This one comes with a salvage title, which is definitely something to consider. Now, let's talk about what makes this Ranchero interesting. It's packing a big block 390 V8 with tons of upgrades, though we'd really want to see that detailed upgrade list, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. That's a pretty exciting combination for any muscle car fan. The seller claims it runs and drives perfectly with no issues, which is promising. There's some serious performance upgrades here. A Wilwood big brake kit up front, that's quality stuff. Upgraded suspension and steering components, and they've modernized the interior with custom bucket seats and a Bluetooth stereo system. These are all thoughtful modifications that improve both performance and usability. The body is described as being in great shape with a few minor defects, but given the salvage title, you'll definitely want to get the full story on what led to that title status. This is crucial information that could affect both the vehicle's value and any future insurance considerations. At $14,000, considering it's a big block Ranchero with performance upgrades, the price could be reasonable if, and this is a big if, the salvage title story checks out and all the modifications are well documented. These Rancheros are getting harder to find, and the 394-speed combo is desirable. 11. We're looking at a 1970 Ford F-150 that's listed for $11,900, and I've got to be honest, the seller's description is incredibly brief, which always makes me a bit cautious. What we do know is that this truck is powered by the 390 V8 engine, which is actually a pretty desirable power plant. These big block Fords are known for their torque and reliability, and when paired with an automatic transmission, they make for a solid cruiser. The seller tells us it runs good and has good tires with a solid body, but that's about as detailed as it gets. No mention of mileage, restoration history, or any recent maintenance. They're not even telling us about the condition of the interior or any potential rust issues, which is pretty important for a 53-year-old truck. At $11,900, considering the current classic truck market, this could either be a decent deal or a bit steep. It's really impossible to say without more information. These early 70s Ford trucks are definitely gaining in value, especially solid original examples, but we'd need to see a lot more details and photos to make that call. My advice? If you're interested, you'll want to do a thorough in-person inspection. Check for the usual F-150 trouble spots like cab corners, floor pans, and frame rails. Make sure that 390 isn't burning oil or making any unusual noises, and verify the transmission shifts smoothly. 12. We're looking at a 1979 Chevrolet C20 listed for $4,500, and I've got to appreciate the seller's honesty about this old workhorse. Let's start with the biggest selling point. This truck is packing the mighty 454 big block V8 paired with the bulletproof TH400 transmission. That's a powertrain combo that's known for its durability and torque, perfect for a work truck. The seller mentions it runs well, starts every time, and the transmission shifts properly. That's crucial information for a truck of this vintage. Now let's be completely honest about the condition because the seller certainly is. This is a working truck with the battle scars to prove it. There are dings and dents throughout, paint blemishes and rust in the typical C20 trouble spots, specifically the floorboards and rockers. The wipers have a mind of their own. They come on randomly. The AC isn't working, and the factory radio's dead. But it's not all wear and tear. The seat is reported to be nice. It's got a new battery, fresh oil change, and true dual exhaust. The 14-bolt rear axle is a tough piece of equipment, and features like the tilt steering column, sliding rear window, and receiver hitch add functionality. At $4,500, what you're getting here is a running and driving classic work truck with the desirable big block / TH400 combo. The price seems fair considering the mechanical condition, though you'll need to factor in some rust repair if you want to keep it long term. 13. We're looking at a 1974 Chevy K5 Blazer listed for $15,000. And let's be completely upfront here. This is definitely a project vehicle that needs some serious work. The most important thing to note right off the bat is that this Blazer currently has no engine or transmission. However, the seller is including a Gen 4 6.0L engine and 6L80 transmission with the deal, which is actually a pretty sweet modern powertrain combo that could make this classic Blazer a real performer once installed. The good points? It's got matching VIN numbers, always important for collectors, a clean title, and comes with a full removable top. They've already done some upgrades with a 4-inch lift and new wheels and tires. The K5 Blazers from this era are becoming increasingly desirable, especially ones with all matching numbers. Now let's be real here. At $15,000, you're buying a project that will require significant work and additional investment. You'll need to factor in the cost of installing that powertrain, and likely other restoration work that isn't detailed in the rather brief description. The seller's straight up calling it a project truck ready to be restored, so don't expect to drive it home. For someone looking to build a Restomod K5 Blazer with modern power, this could be an interesting starting point. That 6.0L/6L80 combo would make this classic SUV a whole lot more drivable than its original powertrain. But you'll need the skills, or budget, to make it all work together. 14. We're looking at a 1985 Chevrolet C10 listed for $9,500. And I've got to be completely honest. The seller's description raises some red flags. Let's break this down. We're looking at a project truck that's been sitting for several years, which is never great for any vehicle. And while it runs, the seller openly admits it needs work, without specifying what kind of work. That's pretty vague for a truck asking $9,500. The odometer shows 74,000 miles, but given the age and project status, we'd need verification on whether those are original miles. The seller doesn't mention which engine it has, the transmission condition, though we know it's automatic, or any details about rust, interior condition, or specific mechanical issues. At $9,500, even though it's listed as negotiable, this seems pretty steep for what's described as a project truck that's been sitting and needs work. These square-body C10s are definitely gaining in value, but this price point usually gets you something in better condition with more documentation. Look, folks, while these 80s C10s make great project trucks and have a huge aftermarket support, you really need more information before considering this one. The brief description and high asking price for a project that's been sitting should make any potential buyer very cautious. 15. We're looking at a 1977 Ford F-150 listed for $15,000. And I've got to say, the description is pretty minimal for a truck at this price point. What we do know is promising. It's a 4x4 with the 351 V8 engine paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, which is a desirable powertrain combo. Being a California truck originally is definitely a plus, as these typically have less rust issues than trucks from other regions. The seller mentions they've owned it for 7 years and that it runs great, though we're not getting any details about maintenance history or recent work. They note some paint fading, but that's about all we know about the cosmetic condition. The odometer shows 65,000 miles, but we don't know if that's original. Now let's talk about that $15,000 firm price tag. While these 70s F-150S, especially 4x4S with the 351 4-speed combo, are definitely increasing in value, this is serious money for a truck we don't know much about. The seller insists it's a very fair price, but without more details about condition, maintenance history, or any upgrades, it's hard to verify that claim. For someone looking for a classic Ford 4x4, this could be worth checking out, but you'll want to ask a lot more questions and see detailed photos. Key things to verify would be the condition of the frame, body panels, interior, and how well that 4x4 system functions. 16. We're checking out a 1984 Chevy El Camino SE, listed for $10,500, and this one's got some interesting details worth discussing. First off, we're looking at a California-turned-Arizona car with the 305 V8 and automatic transmission. That's significant because these dry state cars typically avoid the rust issues that plague many El Caminos from other regions. The seller confirms this, noting there's no rust and the body is pretty straight, aside from a few small dents in the lower quarter panels. What's really catching my attention is the recent maintenance work. New spark plugs, wires, oil change, radiator flush, plus a new fuel tank, pump, and filter. They've also put on new tires and had the AC serviced. And speaking of AC, it actually works great, which is pretty rare for a vehicle this age. Now let's be honest about what it needs. The seller mentions it could use a carburetor cleaning and some vacuum line replacements. At 153,000 miles, that's pretty reasonable maintenance stuff for these vehicles. The price point of $10,500, and they're open to offers, seems fair for a rust-free El Camino with working AC and recent maintenance, especially given the current market for these unique car-truck hybrids. These final-generation El Caminos are gaining interest among collectors, particularly well-maintained examples. 17. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1979 Chevrolet Silverado C30, listed for $12,500, and this one's got some unique features that make it stand out. First off, this is a one-owner California truck powered by the mighty 454 7.4L V8 with an automatic transmission, showing 92,000 miles. Being a California truck since new is always a plus for these classics, and the seller notes it has only minimal surface rust. That's important. What makes this C30 unique is its custom stance. It's been lowered with a Beltec lowering kit and has airbags in the rear. It even comes with the original camper with carpet kit, which is pretty rare to find these days. The truck's been repainted from its original yellow to baby blue, though the seller's honest about the paint having some issues. It's not a show truck, as they clearly state. The good stuff includes working AC and heat, tilt wheel, and all the original manual windows. At 92,000 miles, the seller mentions it runs and drives great, which is what you'd hope for from a well-maintained big block Chevy. Now, let's be real here. At $12,500, or best offer, you're buying a unique piece that's been modified but maintains its utility with that camper setup. The lowered stance with airbags makes it a cool cruiser, but it's not trying to be a perfect show truck. The seller's upfront about the paint issues. 18. We've got a real treat for you. A 1979 Ford Ranchero that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $10,000, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. Now I know what you might be thinking. A 1979 vehicle? Is it even in good condition? Well, my friends, the seller has assured us that this Ranchero is in good shape. It's got a clean interior, and the white paint job looks sharp. Plus, it's got some sweet American racing wheels with brand new tires. Under the hood, you'll find a 302 engine and a 3-speed automatic transmission. The seller has even upgraded a few things like adding a new 4-barrel Edelbrock carb, an aluminum intake, and an aluminum radiator. Oh, and did I mention it's got a new water pump and working AC and heat? That's right, you'll be cruising in comfort no matter the weather. But wait, there's more. The seller has also installed a new Bluetooth stereo and speakers, so you can jam out to your favorite tunes while you're driving around town. And if you're worried about the odometer reading 79,999 miles, don't be. This Ranchero has still got plenty of life left in it. Now, I do have to mention one little thing. The muffler is currently leaking. But don't worry, the seller has already made an appointment at the muffler shop to get that fixed up. And hey, if you're feeling extra handy, the seller even has a small batch of extra parts that come with the vehicle. 19. We've got a real gem to talk about. A 1976 GMC 3500 that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $7,500, and let me tell you, it's a steal. Now I know what you might be thinking. A 1976 vehicle with over 83,000 miles on the odometer? Is it even in good condition? Well, my friends, the seller has described this GMC 3500 as being in like-new condition. That's right. Despite its age and mileage, this truck has been well maintained and is ready to hit the road. The exterior of this GMC 3500 is painted in a sleek black color that looks absolutely stunning, and the interior, also black, giving it a classic and timeless look. It's got an automatic transmission, making it easy to drive, and a clean title, so you know it's got a good history. Now I do have to mention a couple of things that might raise some eyebrows. The seller has listed the drivetrain as FWD, front-wheel drive, which is a bit unusual for a truck like this. Most trucks from this era were either RWD, rear-wheel drive, or 4WD, four-wheel drive. Additionally, the engine is described as other, which could mean a few different things. It's possible that the engine has been modified or replaced with something non-standard. Despite these quirks, I have to say that this 1976 GMC 3500 looks like an absolute beast. It's got a rugged, classic look that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with only 83,367 miles on the odometer, it's got plenty of life left in it. 20. We've got a real classic for you. A 1976 Ford F250 that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $6,500, and let me tell you, it's a fantastic deal for a truck with this kind of history. First off, can we talk about that paint job? The original orange color is still intact, and it looks absolutely stunning. This truck has clearly been well maintained over the years, and it shows in the straight body and clean title. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 390 engine that runs like a dream. The seller has assured us that this F250 drives great, and with only 55,234 miles on the odometer, it's got plenty of life left in it. Plus, it's got the highly sought-after Explore package, which adds some extra features and style to this already impressive truck. Now, I do have to mention one little thing. The seller has noted that there is an exhaust leak. But hey, that's a relatively easy fix for anyone with a little bit of mechanical know-how. And honestly, with a truck this cool, a little exhaust leak is just part of the charm. The transmission is an automatic, making it easy to drive, and the RWD, rear-wheel drive, drivetrain, is exactly what you'd expect from a classic truck like this. The seller has also mentioned that all the lights work, which is always a plus. Overall, this 1976 Ford F250 is a fantastic find for anyone who loves classic trucks. It's got a great look, a powerful engine, and a price tag that won't break the bank. The seller has noted that the price is firm, so if you're interested, you'd better act fast.